Mom's fiancé, 10 years younger than me, asked if I would call him dad, and now I'm caught in a bizarre family dynamic. I'm a 35-year-old man, and for some backstory, my dad died when I was 19, leaving my mom with me and my 2 siblings. I'm the oldest. It took some time, but eventually my mom started dating again. We don't live together per se, but our houses back onto each other and have a gate, so it's pretty common for her to offer to do my laundry or me just go over for dinner or go look after our dog, that kind of stuff. Plus me and my siblings go over there for dinner every other Friday night or so. A bit after she started, the men she's been dating have been getting younger and younger, and I've never had a problem with them. She's been very open to me and my siblings that she wants to get married again, and we've always been supportive. At least after the initial shocks, lol. The latest guy is by far the most serious, and they've been dating since around last June. He proposed at the start of autumn and they want to get married next summer. Again, me and my siblings are fine with this because it's her life and we trust him. He's a nice guy and they clearly love each other. But anyway. So long and short is, this weekend, her fiancé, let's call him Phil, calls me and asks me if I could come over. I say yeah, sure, I'll be over after work, and I assumed he just needed help with some DIY stuff they're doing. When I get over there he calls me sport and says we need to talk. I should mention this is something he does to me and my little brother, calling us things like kid, sport, scout, little buddy, or my personal favorite, calling us red and blue seemingly out of nowhere. My brother is 30, by the way. He tried it with my little sister, 28, too, once, and called her princess once, but he stopped when she just stared at him. So thing with Phil is that he reminds me a lot of Charlie Day's character in Horrible Bosses, in that his sole ambition has always been to meet a girl, get married and have a family. When he told me and my brother this, my brother made some joke about how maybe our mom's going to come short on the last part, and he got very upset, but they made up after. Anyway, so I go round and I ask if my mom's around, and he says no, it's just him and that we really need to talk man to man. I say sure, and he starts talking about how he's always wanted to be a father, etc., and raise a son to call his own, and then he drops this bombshell by saying, now I know I can never replace your father, the man who made you, but it would mean the world to me if you could call me dad. I'll admit it, I sniggered a little. And then I knew he was serious because he looked like he was about to cry. And he didn't drop it either. I asked if he really meant it, and he got really emotional and started talking about what it means to be a man and how his purpose is to have and provide for a family, and he wants me and my siblings to be part of that family. Like he reiterated he'll never replace my father, and this did rub me the wrong way a bit, but he's ready to step up and be my dad and provide for and protect me and my siblings. And I'm just sat there thinking, dude, I'm a decade older than you and live in a separate house. I don't need providing for, and even if I did, I don't think a guy a third of my age who works part-time at the hardware store and is into collecting manga is the man to do it. No offense if you're into that, lol, just. I dunno, I was a bit taken aback. I was in shock, so just said okay, and he gets emotional again, but in a happy way, talking about how he wants to go camping or go to a baseball game. I don't even like baseball, lamau, and how he joined the Lions this year and how he wants to bring me into it too as his boy, which just feels so surreal. Even more so as I'm a Shriner, so all this talk of service and charity isn't the brag he thinks it is, because again I'm 10 years older than THI's guy. Well, I ended it by just saying, this has gotten a bit too weird, and I was going home. He got very upset and I left, called my brother, and he agreed it sounds weird as fuck. Later my mom called me and she wasn't disappointed but admitted it's made him very upset and depressed. I told her that if he's embarrassed, he doesn't need to be. I get he's excited about the marriage and we can just laugh this off as a funny story. She then said that wasn't what he was upset about. He, and she too a bit, is upset about the fact he poured his heart out and I rejected him. She said yeah, it is a bit kooky, but this is how he proves to himself he's a man, and I guess I was a bit angry and said something like, first off, it's not my job to certify what's between his legs, and second, this doesn't prove he's a man, it just proves he's a nutjob. I apologized immediately, but she said she didn't want to hear it and hung up. She called back 10 minutes later and we apologized, and she begged me to just go along with it until he has some kids to call his own. I won't go too much into the details here, but she sort of let slip they plan to try IVF treatment because she's not ready to give up on being a mom just yet. And while I have my own thoughts about whether or not that's a good idea, I'm not here to litigate on that. We finished up fine and I reiterated I'd support her, and she agreed that it was definitely a stressful situation for me but begged me to at least think about it. Which leads me to here. I did think it over and obviously I'm going to say no. I had a dad and he died, rest in peace dad, and that's the only dad I've ever needed, I've ever wanted, and I'll ever bestow that title on. I'm not asking if someone's unreasonable or what I should do, more so what I should say. This clearly means a lot to him for some reason, and I deeply love my mom, so want to try and minimize the damage. Especially as we're still so involved in each other's lives and the why live behind me. How can I make it clear to them, as painlessly as possible, that I think this is weird and borderline offensive? I really don't want to rip the band-aid off because I fear what it might do to the family. Edit, showed my brother the post and he laughed so hard he started coughing, lol, then said we should call him Dr. Phil and each other blue and red, so swap the nicknames he gave us around, thoughts? Update 1. Original post and slightly amended the title for clarity. Anyway, so I told both my siblings and we agreed we'd collectively put our foot down with Phil at our next family dinner next week. Especially after an incident where Phil referred to my brother as sport and asked if he wanted to go see a baseball game with him. Admittedly, I was a bit spurred on by what you all said and got involved, pinging him back with "Aw, no tickets for me daddy," and my brother responded with "Daddy wants to me all to himself." Hot, and Phil took a few minutes to respond before saying he was shocked, speechless and disgusted. He then messaged me in private to say he was utterly appalled and that he'd never disrespect his own father the way you boys did. I kind of lost it at this point and said, "Right, that's because you're not my father, Phil. You're a 24-year-old manchild dating my mother. You have no right to my respect, especially not to the respect a father gets." I immediately said sorry but then blocked his number and left the group chat. Apparently he sent a similar thing to my brother, who responded with more daddy stuff, and Phil blocked him. Well, that aside, I don't think that family dinner is going ahead. After the original post blew up, it seems someone from his Lions Club found it and reported it to their chair or whatever, and Phil has either been expelled or resigned or in the process of one of the two. He has removed nearly all mentions of the Lions from his social media and no longer mentions being a member with his last post, on it being some cryptic goodbye post where he kinda drones on about what it means to be a man in the modern day and the duty of fatherhood bestowed on all men at birth. Really weird shit. My mom called me half in a panic, half in a rage after, about the stuff I'd been telling about him before breaking down and saying we need to meet, which we did and got my brother to go over too. I know he has temporarily moved back in with his parents in the next town over, but from my understanding they still want to go ahead with the wedding. But I think that's more so because they've already spent money on it. When she said she was determined to have more kids, plural, my brother did step up and asked if she really thought that was a good idea at her age, and I pointed out that assuming she had the baby next year, and she lived to 80, they still wouldn't have finished college. She just stammered on about how people live longer these days before breaking down crying and admitting she's not ready to give up on mothering due to some deep-seated trauma and fears about the family breaking apart that I won't go into for her sake. When we reassured her that we weren't going anywhere, she calmed down and we had a very good honest conversation where she's agreed to drop the IVF stuff on the grounds that it'd be too expensive and unlikely to get greenlit, but she's still adamant it's scientifically possible and she should be allowed to do it from an ethical standpoint because she has to win that argument, and has agreed to look into fostering instead. Me and my brother highly doubt anything will ever come of that, so we're not that worried anymore. The very good news is she's also agreed to look into therapy/psychiatric help to deal with her trauma, and we've helped get her in touch with a nice lady in town to unpack all this in a more healthy way. So at least one person is getting the help they need. I have no idea what's happened with Phil or what's going to happen with him, but I did make it clear to my mom that he is not my dad, he's not even my stepdad, I'm not a kid. And he's never going to be either one outside of legal fuckery. She relented pretty quickly. I think she's finally broken out of her shell at least, and we've agreed that if things go ahead that's going to be a huge red line, though I dunno if he'll want to be friends with me after all this lamau. Anyway, thanks for the help on the original post, y'all. Edit, bit of an update as I can't respond to everybody, but I think the marriage is off. Phil has gone AWOL again and has had a huge argument with his family as they've demanded he call off the wedding and date people his own age. This apparently made him snap. Me and my mom have met his mom and older brother, who said Phil is very insecure around girls his own age and has never been able to talk them, hence his preference. This very deeply upset my mom, and after some begging from all of us, she has agreed to push the wedding back, though she wants to keep dating him. I have no idea where Phil is, though his brother assumes he's couch surfing with his D&D friends who have been sending me and my brother some not nice messages because clearly we're just jealous of the MILF hunter. If any of you socially inept fucks are reading this, I don't need to chase middle-aged folk because I can talk to boys my own age like a normal person. Now on to second story. Caught my husband chatting away as our newborn stroller barreled towards a busy street, and I can't forgive his careless oversight. I'm 25F, been with my husband, 30 male, since 2018. We have a 3-year-old girl and a newborn boy. But tonight, things almost took a tragic turn. My husband has always had trouble paying attention, but I never thought it would come to this. Our neighborhood is weirdly laid out, with cars zooming by at crazy speeds. I was folding clothes when I heard our toddler screaming, "Dad, help." That tone made me drop everything and SPR, in outside. What I saw made my blood run cold, our newborn in his stroller, careening towards the busy street. I screamed and lunged, barely stopping the stroller in time. My baby girl's hands and knees were scratched up because she tripped trying to run after the stroller. I snatched up my baby, heart pounding, and scanned for my husband. He wasn't watching, he was chatting with neighbors, completely oblivious. The anger I felt was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I stormed up to him, shouting in disbelief. He looked shocked at first, then realized what almost happened. The apologies and tears came pouring out, but it was too late. I couldn't wrap my head around how he could be so careless, so blind to our toddler's screams and the stroller rolling away. I packed up the kids and left, staying with my parents. They're on my side, but my husband keeps texting, begging forgiveness, calling it an honest mistake. But I can't shake the terror of almost losing my baby because he couldn't focus for a single second. My baby girl got hurt in the process because he couldn't pay attention. I almost lost my son because he couldn't pay attention. I can't stop crying. I feel so guilty. I wish this all never happened. Sorry it's short, I just want to hold my babies and I can't stop shaking every time I think about it. What if I was just 1 second late? Would I have been planning a funeral? Update 1. The neighbor's wife sent me the footage, and I really can't just wrap my head around it. So my husband was walking with the stroller and my toddler was in front of them when they passed the neighbor's house. My neighbor was outside, washing his car, and my toddler saw his pet cat and stopped to go pet it, so my husband stopped. Left my baby on the road. He didn't even bother locking the wheels and walked all the way up the driveway, not even bothering looking back at the baby. He had his back faced to him for about 5 minutes before the stroller just suddenly started moving. I think it's because the road is on a hill kinda, or it could have been the wind. My toddler never went near the stroller. It couldn't been her. The stroller went down the road and my toddler. That's when she started screaming and running for it when she saw it. The neighbor started running after my daughter when she tripped. He tried to pick her up. That's when the neighbor's wife's car comes into frame and she stops and starts running back to the way the stroller is coming. After that you can't really see anything because it's all out of frame, but you can hear all the commotion. My husband just stood there the whole time, hand on his head with a blank stare on his face. He didn't even do anything when our toddler was crying from hurting herself. He only started crying when I confronted him. What do? I genuinely do not know what to do. I'm panicking. This was never the life I wanted for my kids. I don't understand why he was standing there. I have not even gotten a text or a call from him since I got sent the video. It's just been silent. I just can't get the sound of my daughter's screams. That's the sound that no mother wants to hear. I can't explain in the moment, but it felt like my blood went cold. And I just felt pure fear. I never want to watch the footage again. Update 2. After reading through the comments, I decided to go back to my husband. Many of you pointed out that if I left him, we'd end up with 50-50 custody of our kids, which I couldn't bear. So, I made the difficult choice to stay, even though my love for him has faded. My plan now is to tough it out until our kids turn 18, and then leave. I'm terrified of getting pregnant again, especially since I'm not allowed to use birth control or get my tubes tied. My parents, who could offer support, are moving away, leaving me feeling trapped. Despite everything, my husband tries hard to make things right. He still treats me with affection and goes out of his way to create special moments for our family. I am bond with our newborn, and our daughter fills me with conflicting emotions. I know I can't stand being with him, but I can't bear to separate him from our kids either. He was so happy when we came back home, but I can't stand even looking at him. I feel some guilt because he still calls me by my nickname, looks at me like I'm the only girl in the world, besides our daughter, and he still continues our traditions. Like when the kids are sleeping, he will go get ice cream and our favorite snacks and sets up a fort on our bed to watch movies on our laptop. Even though I'm sacrificing my happiness, my priority is ensuring my children's safety and well-being. It's a tough situation, but I'm doing my best to navigate it for the sake of my family. This is a throwaway, so I'm gonna log out by update 3. As you can see from my previous post, I did go back to him and it was quite literally the biggest mistake I've ever made, but I felt like I really had no choice. No money. Family moved out of state. A lot has happened the past couple of months, so it turns out my husband started taking meds for his ADHD a couple of weeks before I was due to give birth to our son. He took my kids on a walk to cover up the fact that he was also on meth. He took my kids to meet his dealer apparently every time they went for a walk. Looking back at the footage now, it makes so much sense because the way he was talking to the neighbor before everything happened, he was kind of leaning to the side. I talked to my neighbor, and I asked him if he knew that my husband was on drugs. He said he didn't, but he noticed that my husband looked a bit off recently. His wife works at a rehab clinic. After a fight where I had to flee with the kids to the neighbor's house, she pointed out that the way he was acting was the way that people acted with drug withdrawal. My neighbor and his wife ended up helping me book a flight to my parents. I'm currently with them right now, and I have spoken to a lawyer that my parents are going to help me pay for, I think, all the people from my original post that told me to keep the footage because it is going to come in handy. My husband keeps sending me videos of him shooting up and doing other substances. He keeps saying that they are going to fix him. He sent me a video of him standing in our kids' room. And he was just screaming at me, saying that it helped him cope with his ADHD. He took a knife and stabbed both of our kids' mattresses. I am not going back. He even cut up the side of my bed. There's a comment from my previous post that has been sitting in the back of my mind and has been bugging me. I think you know which one it was. It was by their comment saying I don't care if it was his ADHD, isn't going to fix anything, and will probably only make things worse. Talking and thinking about it like he intentionally tried to kill your child isn't either. With ADHD you actually do not register things like this at all sometimes. Life expectancy for those of us with ADHD is actually significantly lower because many of us end up, often accidentally, killing ourselves. It is not the same thing as carelessness, but learning about ADHD a little deeper can help you guys be safer. Understanding how my ADHD works and using different than standard precautions, like my brain needs, has actually most likely saved my life. Lie out what you want from him. That's probably that he get his ADHD better under control, whether that be through prescription medication or more homeopathic method, that you get a different place if possible, that he not take your kids out in your front yard without you, etc. Also, neither he or the neighbor noticed, but you heard your kid from inside? Something seems off here. Were your neighbors just watching the stroller roll towards the street? Was your husband on the other side of your house where he couldn't see the stroller? Were you already walking outside as this unfolded? I'm trying to understand better what was going on Hear and why your husband or the neighbor did not notice, but you did from inside? People with ADHD tend to be incredibly good and quick to AC emergency situations, so this is especially weird. I'm absolutely not accusing you of leaving anything out or anything, but asking you to think about what your husband and the neighbor were doing that neither noticed? That smells fishy. This is a horrible situation. I lost a pet due to the inattentiveness of ADHD, but I can't imagine even nearly losing a child. WTF, it baffles me that you can even compare losing an animal to losing a child. You made people with ADHD sound completely unreliable for themselves and that they can't do anything. You made them sound very helpless, and saying that the life expectancy thing was completely uncalled for as well. I bet many people with ADHD reading that completely disagreed with you, judging from all the comments and YouTube videos I've seen on my post. I don't know if you're projecting that you lost a pet from your inattentiveness of ADHD. If you were letting things die in your care, you need to get stronger help. And no, I was not going to lay out what I want from him. He's the one that started mixing his meds and was high off his mind every time they went out for a walk. And no, I'm not ableist. I was in a very vulnerable state when I first posted my original post. All I was doing was looking for help and advice, but all I got was, where was you? What were you doing? Why wasn't you with the kids? Why didn't you get your husband checked out? I was healing from a fucking C-section. Get that through your heads. I genuinely hope that everybody that said something horrible about me in my original post has to get cut open and then 4 days later is forced to run down the street. I gave him another chance like you all said in my original post. You seen what happened. Stop using ADHD as an excuse. I genuinely believe that if he had killed my child, you would have defended him, and no, I did not. Now he was on drugs, and all the people that reached out to me, I'm going to be forever grateful for all of the parents with ADHD that didn't make me feel like it was all my fault, and all the stories that you guys have shared with me made me feel so seen, because I know exactly how it feels. I hope everybody is doing well. Everybody that was defending me. I wish I could give you a big hug. I genuinely wish I could send gift baskets. I would. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and I am so sorry about that comment that person made.